The rain falls heavy over Boston on a Thursday evening in late October. Claire Bennett stands alone in the parking lot of St. Catherine's Hospital, her umbrella forgotten somewhere inside, maybe in the waiting room, where she received the news that changed everything. The cold water runs down her face, mixing with tears she no longer tries to hide. At 32 years old, she feels like her life has become a series of doors closing, one after another, until she finds herself standing in the dark with nowhere left to go. 3 months ago, she lost the baby. 2 months ago, she lost her husband, or rather, he lost himself in the arms of another woman, a younger colleague from his law firm, who didn't carry the weight of grief in her eyes. The divorce papers arrived last week, cold and clinical, reducing 8 years of marriage to a stack of documents requiring her signature. She signed them without crying. She thought she had no tears left. She was wrong. Claire walks through the rain. Without direction, her scrubs soaked through, her sneakers squelching against the wet pavement. She works as a nurse in the emergency department, has worked there for 7 years, and tonight was supposed to be her first shift back after bereavement leave. She made it 4 hours before the walls started closing in, before the sound of a baby crying in the pediatric wing sent her spiraling into a panic attack in the supply closet. Her supervisor found her there, crouched between boxes of gauze and surgical gloves, struggling to breathe. Margaret, a 60-year-old woman with kind eyes and decades of experience, didn't ask questions. She simply helped Claire to her feet, handed her a glass of water, and told her to go home. Home. The word feels foreign now. The apartment she once shared with David has become a mausoleum of memories she can't escape. His absence fills every room, not because she misses him, but because his leaving proved what she had feared all along. She wasn't enough. She couldn't carry their child to term, couldn't give him the family he wanted, couldn't be the wife he needed. So he found someone who could. The rain intensifies as Claire reaches the corner of Commonwealth Avenue. She should call a cab, should find shelter, should do something rational. Instead, she keeps walking, her feet carrying her through streets she barely recognizes, her mind lost in a fog of exhaustion and despair. She doesn't notice the black sedan until it's too late. The car comes, out of nowhere, or maybe she stepped into the street without looking. Either way, the headlights blind her for a split second before the screech of brakes fills the air. Claire freezes, her body refusing to move, some part of her wondering if this is how it ends, if the universe has finally decided to put her out of her misery. But the impact never comes. The car stops inches from her body, so close she can feel the heat from the engine. For a moment, nothing moves. Then the driver's door opens, and a man steps out into the rain. He's tall, over 6 feet, with dark hair plastered to his forehead and eyes the color of storm clouds. He wears a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Claire's monthly rent, now getting ruined by the downpour. But he doesn't seem to care about the rain or the suit or anything except her. "Are you hurt?" His voice is deep, controlled, carrying an authority that makes Claire's spine straighten instinctively. She shakes her head, unable to find words. He moves closer, his gaze sweeping over her with clinical precision. "You're in shock and you're soaked through." He shrugs off his jacket and drapes it over her shoulders before she can protest. The fabric is warm and smells like cedar and something else, something masculine and expensive. "There's a hospital 2 blocks from here. I'll drive you." "I just came from there," Claire hears herself say. "I work there. I'm a nurse." Something shifts in his expression, too quick to identify. "Then you should know better than to walk into traffic." "I wasn't—" She stops because what can she say? That she wasn't trying to hurt herself, that she just forgot to look. Both sound hollow, even to her own ears. The man studies her for a long moment, rain streaming down his face, and Claire finds herself unable to look away. There's something in his eyes, something that looks almost like recognition, though she's certain they've never met. She would remember a face like his. "Get in the car," he says. "Finally. I'll take you home." Every instinct tells her to refuse. She doesn't know this man, doesn't know anything about him, except that he drives a car that costs more than her annual salary and moves like someone accustomed to being obeyed. But the cold has seeped into her bones and the rain shows no sign of stopping, and something in his voice makes her feel, for the first time in months, like someone else is in control. She gets in the car. The interior is all leather and dark wood, warmer than she expected. The man slides into the driver's seat and adjusts the heat before pulling back onto the road. Classical music plays softly from the speakers, something haunting and beautiful that Claire doesn't recognize. "Where to?" he asks. She gives him her address in Beacon Hill, a neighborhood she can barely afford since the divorce. He nods once, his eyes on the road, his hands steady on the wheel. "I'm Claire," she offers, unsure why she feels the need to introduce herself. Claire. Bennett. Marco. He doesn't offer a last name. Marco De Luca. The name sounds Italian, which matches the slight accent she detected in his speech. But there's something American about him too, something that suggests he's been in this country long enough to call it home. "Thank you," Claire says, "for stopping, and for the jacket, and for not being a serial killer." A ghost of a smile crosses his lips. The night is young. She laughs, surprising herself. It's a small sound, rusty from disuse but genuine. Marco glances at her, and for a moment the mask of controlled authority slips, revealing something warmer underneath. "You should do that more often," he says quietly. "What?" "Laugh." Claire looks away, uncomfortable with the observation. How can he possibly know how rarely she laughs these days? How can he see through her so easily when she's spent months building walls to keep everyone out? They drive in silence for several minutes, the rain drumming against the roof, the windshield wipers maintaining a steady rhythm. Claire finds herself studying Marco's profile, the strong jaw, the straight nose, the way his eyes constantly move, checking mirrors, scanning the streets as if he's expecting something, or someone. "You're not from Boston," she says. "No, New York, originally, but I have business here." "What kind of business?" He pauses before answering. "Investments, real estate, various ventures." It's a non-answer, deliberately vague, but Claire doesn't press. She has enough of her own secrets. She can respect someone else's. They reach her building, a brownstone that's seen better days, and Marco pulls up to the curb. He turns off the engine and faces her, and Claire realizes she doesn't want to get out of the car, doesn't want to go back to her empty apartment, to the silence that waits for her there, to another night spent staring at the ceiling and wondering where everything went wrong. "You should see a doctor," Marco says. "Not tonight, but soon. The way you walked into traffic, it wasn't an accident, and the look in your eyes, I've seen it before, in soldiers coming home from war, in people who've lost too much." Claire's throat tightens. "You don't know anything about me. I know you're in pain, I know you're alone, and I know that whatever happened to bring you to that street corner tonight, it wasn't your fault." Tears prick at her eyes, and she hates herself for it. She barely knows this man. She shouldn't be crying in front of him, shouldn't be feeling like he's somehow found the wound she's been hiding from everyone else. "My husband left me," she whispers, "after I lost our baby. He said he couldn't look at me anymore without seeing what we'd lost. So he found someone else. Someone who could give him what I couldn't." Marco's expression doesn't change, but something hardens in his eyes. "Then he's a fool. He's practical. He wanted a family. I couldn't give him one." "That's not practical. That's cowardice." Marco reaches across the console and takes her hand. His grip is firm but gentle, warm against her cold fingers. "You deserve better than a man who runs at the first sign of hardship. You deserve someone who stays." Claire stares at their joined hands, her heart beating faster than it should. She should pull away. She should thank him for the ride and go inside and never think about him again. But his touch feels like an anchor, grounding her in a moment that feels more real than anything has in months. "Why do you care?" she asks. "You don't even know me." "Maybe I'd like to." The words hang in the air between them, heavy with possibility. Claire searches his face for signs of mockery or pity, but finds neither, only sincerity and something else, something that looks almost like hunger. I should go, she says, though she makes no move to leave. Marco nods slowly, releasing her hand. You should rest and eat something. You look like you haven't had a proper meal in weeks. He's right, but she doesn't admit it. Instead, she opens the door and steps out into the rain, which has slowed to a drizzle. She starts to remove his jacket, but he stops her. Keep it. You can return it next time. Next time? I'll find you, Claire Bennett. He says her name like a promise, like a vow. Take care of yourself. Before she can respond, he's pulling away, the black sedan disappearing into the night. Claire stands on the sidewalk, his jacket wrapped around her shoulders, watching until the taillights vanish around the corner. She doesn't know it yet, but her life has just changed forever. The man who almost hit her with his car, the man with storm-gray eyes and a voice like velvet over steel, is not who he claims to be. Marco De Luca is not just an investor or a businessman. He is the head of the most powerful crime family on the East Coast, and he has just decided that Claire Bennett belongs to him. Claire spends the next 3 days in a haze. She calls in sick, to work, unable to face the hospital, unable to face anything. She sleeps too much and eats too little, surviving on coffee and the occasional piece of toast. Marco's jacket hangs in her closet, and she finds herself pulling it out at odd moments, pressing the fabric to her face and breathing in his scent. She tells herself it's pathetic. She tells herself she needs to forget about him, to focus on putting her life back together, to stop fixating on a stranger who showed her kindness on the worst night of her life. But his words keep echoing in her mind. You deserve someone who stays. No one has ever said that to her before. On the 4th day, she forces herself to shower and dress and leave the apartment. She needs groceries, needs to feel sunlight on her face, needs to remember that the world continues even when her own has stopped. The October air is crisp and clean, the rain having washed the city bright, and Claire walks to the market on Charles Street, trying to feel normal. She's standing in the produce section, debating between apples and oranges when she sees him. Marco stands at the end of the aisle, examining a display of imported cheeses with the same intensity he might give a business contract. He wears a black turtleneck and grey slacks, casual by his standards, but still looking like he walked out of a magazine. 2 men in dark suits stand nearby, trying to look inconspicuous and failing miserably. Claire's heart stutters. She considers hiding, considers slipping out the back door before he notices her. But before she can move, he looks up, and their eyes meet across the crowded store. His face transforms. The controlled mask softens into something like relief, like joy, and he moves toward her with purpose in every step. The 2 men in suits follow at a distance, their eyes constantly scanning the room. Claire. He says her name like he's been waiting to say it. I was hoping I'd find you. In a grocery store. I have people looking for you. Everywhere. The grocery store was just a fortunate coincidence. She should be alarmed by that confession. Normal people don't have other people looking for strangers they met once in the rain. But nothing about Marco seems normal, and Claire finds herself more intrigued than frightened. Why are you looking for me? Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. He says it simply, without embarrassment, like stating a fact. Because I wanted to make sure you were okay. And because... You still have my jacket? Claire laughs, and the sound surprises her again. You tracked me down for a jacket. It's a very nice jacket. It is. I was considering keeping it. Then I'll have to give you a reason to give it back. He steps closer, and Claire catches that scent again, cedar and something darker, more complex. Her pulse quickens. She should be sensible. She should make an excuse and leave. She should not be standing in a grocery store flirting with a man who has bodyguards. What kind of reason? She asks instead. Have dinner with me tonight. I don't even know you. That's the point of dinner. To change that. Claire hesitates. Every rational part of her brain is screaming warnings. This man is too smooth, too polished, too clearly hiding something behind those storm-grey eyes. But another part of her, the part that's been numb for months, the part that thought she'd never feel anything again, is suddenly, desperately alive. One dinner, she says. And you, get your jacket back. Marco's smile is slow and warm, and it does something complicated to her insides. "I'll pick you up at 7. He doesn't ask for her address. He already knows it. Claire should find that creepy. Instead, she finds it oddly reassuring, like being cared for by someone who pays attention, who remembers, who makes her feel like she matters. She spends the rest of the day in a state of nervous anticipation. She tries on every dress in her closet, eventually settling on a simple black number that she bought for a hospital gala years ago. She curls her hair and applies makeup for the first time in weeks, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her in the mirror. She looks almost like her old self, almost like the Claire who existed before the loss, before the betrayal, before the endless grey days that blurred together until she forgot what colour felt like. At 7 o'clock exactly, there's a knock at her door. She opens it to find Marco in a charcoal suit, holding a single white rose. Behind him, the same 2 men from the grocery store wait by the elevator, their presence a silent reminder that Marco De Luca is not an ordinary man. "You look beautiful," he says, and the words sound different from his lips than they would from anyone else's. Not flattery, not obligation. Observation. Claire takes the rose, her fingers brushing against his. "Thank you. For this, and for the other night. I never properly thanked you. You can thank me by enjoying tonight." He offers his arm and she takes it, feeling like she's stepping into a fairy tale, or maybe a fever dream. Either way, she's too far gone to turn back now. The restaurant is in the North End, a small Italian place that looks unremarkable from the outside, but reveals itself to be intimate and elegant once they're through the door. The maitre d' greets Marco by name and leads them to a private table in the back, separated from the other diners by a velvet curtain. "They know you here," Claire observes. "I own the building." Of course he does. They order wine and pasta and talk about everything and nothing. Claire learns that Marco spent his childhood in Sicily before his family moved to New York when he was 12. He learned English from American movies and still prefers Scorsese to any other director. He has a younger sister who lives in Milan and a mother who calls him every Sunday without fail. In return, she tells him about growing up in a small town in Maine, about becoming a nurse because she wanted to help people, about David and the marriage that started with promise and ended in ashes. She doesn't mention the baby. That wound is still too raw, too tender to touch, but Marco seems to understand without being told. He listens without interrupting, without offering platitudes, without trying to fix anything. He just sits across from her, giving her his complete attention, making her feel like she's the only person in the world. "Your husband was an idiot?" he says finally when she's finished talking. "You've said that before." It bears repeating. Claire takes a sip of wine, feeling warm and slightly reckless. "What about you? Why isn't someone like you married?" "Someone like me? Wealthy, successful, apparently able to conjure roses out of thin air." Marco's expression flickers, something dark passing behind his eyes. "My work doesn't leave much room for relationships. The few women I've been with, they couldn't handle the demands. The hours, the uncertainty. That sounds lonely." It is. The admission hangs between them, vulnerable and unexpected. Claire reaches across the table and touches his hand, a mirror of what he did for her in the car. His fingers are warm beneath hers, and she feels him tense for a moment before relaxing into her touch. "Maybe you haven't found the right person," she says. "Maybe I have." Their eyes meet, and the air between them crackles with something electric. Claire's breath catches. She should be careful. She should protect herself. She should remember that she swore off love, swore she would never let another man close enough to hurt her. But Marco doesn't feel like a threat. He feels like a promise. They finish dinner and walk along the harbour, the city lights reflecting on the water. Marco keeps his hand at the small of her back, a possessive gesture that makes Claire feel claimed in a way she's never experienced. David was never protective. David was practical, logical, always calculating the cost-benefit analysis of every emotion. This is different. This is primal. "I should tell you something," Marco says as they pause to look at the boats. "About my work." Claire's heart rate spikes. Okay. It's not always legal. The things I do, the people I deal with, they exist in a grey area that most people would find disturbing. She processes this, waiting for the fear to come. It doesn't. Are you dangerous? To you? Never. To others. When necessary. Have you ever hurt someone? Yes? He doesn't elaborate, doesn't defend himself, doesn't try to soften the truth. He simply waits for her reaction, and Claire realizes this is a test. He's giving her a chance to walk away, to return to her safe, small life, to pretend this night never happened. She thinks about David, about his gentle lies and his careful cruelty, about the way he smiled when he told her he was leaving, as if destroying her life was just another item on his to-do list, about all the respectable men she's known who hid their darkness behind polished facades. Marco hides nothing. He shows her exactly who he is and lets her decide. I'm not afraid of you, she says. You should be. But I'm not. He stares at her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Then he cups her face in his hands, tilts her chin up and kisses her. The kiss is soft at first, questioning, giving her every opportunity to pull away. But Claire doesn't want to pull away. She wants to fall into him, to lose herself in his warmth and strength and the way he makes her feel alive for the first time in months. She wraps her arms around his neck and kisses him back, and somewhere in the distance, church bells ring midnight. When they finally separate, both breathing hard, Marco rests his forehead against hers. Come home with me, he murmurs. Not for anything you're not ready for. Just to be with me. Just so I don't have to let you go yet. Every sensible thought in Claire's head says, no, but her heart, her treacherous healing heart says yes. She says yes. Check if you're already subscribed to this channel. If stories that make you feel alive, that remind you love, can find you in the most unexpected moments, speak to your soul, then hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss what happens next. Marco's house is not a house. It's an estate, a sprawling property in Dover that looks like something from a period drama, all stone walls and manicured gardens and windows, that glow warm against the darkness. The black sedan sweeps through iron gates that open automatically, then winds up a long driveway lined with oak trees whose autumn leaves rustle in the wind. Claire presses her face to the window like a child, taking it all in. This is where you live? When I'm in Boston, yes. It's enormous. It's practical. I need space for my staff, for security, for the various requirements of my business. Your grey area business. Exactly. They pull up to the front entrance where a woman in a crisp uniform waits with a warm smile. She's in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes that remind Claire of her own mother. Mr. DeLuca, the woman says, and guest, welcome home. Elena, this is Claire Bennett. She'll be staying tonight. Please make sure the blue room is prepared. Of course, sir. Claire follows Marco inside, her heels clicking against marble floors. The interior is all dark wood and soft lighting, masculine and elegant, with art on the walls that looks expensive and books on shelves that look actually read. It's a home, she realizes, not a showpiece. Despite the grandeur, there's warmth here, signs of life. The blue room is at the end of the east wing, Marco explains, as they climb a sweeping staircase. It has its own bathroom and a view of the gardens. If you need anything during the night, there's an intercom by the bed. Where's your room? West wing. Far enough for propriety. Close enough if you call. He stops outside a door painted midnight blue and pushes it open to reveal a bedroom that takes Claire's breath away. A four-poster bed dominates the space, draped in ivory linens that look impossibly soft. French doors lead to a small balcony, and the promised view of the garden stretches beyond, silver in the moonlight. This is too much, Claire whispers. It's exactly enough. Marco turns her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. You deserve beauty, Claire. You deserve comfort. You deserve to be taken care of. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're brave and kind and stronger than you realize. I know you've been through something terrible and come out the other side still standing. I know that when I'm with you, the world makes more sense than it has in years. Tears prick at Claire's eyes. She spent so long feeling worthless, feeling like her inability to carry a child made her fundamentally broken. David's departure only confirmed what she already believed about herself. But Marco looks at her like she's precious, like she's worthy, like she's enough. "Why me?" she asks, her voice cracking. "You could have anyone. Why a broken nurse you almost ran over in the rain?" Marco wipes a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "Because you're not broken, you're healing, and I'd like to be part of that healing if you'll let me." Claire doesn't have words, so she rises on her toes and kisses him instead. It's softer than their kiss by the harbor, slower, full of promise rather than passion. When she pulls back, Marco is smiling, and it transforms his face from handsome to devastating. "Get some rest," he says. "I'll see you in the morning." He leaves her then, closing the door gently behind him. Claire stands in the middle of the beautiful room, wearing his jacket over her dress, wondering how her life has become this. 3 days ago, she was walking into traffic. Tonight, she's in a mansion, being kissed by a man who makes her heart race, and her fears quiet. She should be terrified. She should be questioning every choice that led her here. But as she changes into the silk pajamas she finds laid out on the bed, clearly chosen by Elena with impeccable taste, all she feels is peace. For the first time in months, Claire sleeps without nightmares. She wakes to sunlight streaming through the French doors and the smell of coffee drifting from somewhere below. For a moment she's disoriented, expecting her small apartment, her narrow bed, her lonely morning routine. Then memory returns, and with it, a flutter of something that feels dangerously like hope. She showers in a bathroom bigger than her living room, finds fresh clothes in the closet that fit perfectly, and makes her way downstairs following the scent of food. The kitchen is enormous, all white marble and professional-grade appliances, but the scene before her is surprisingly domestic. Marco stands at the stove, cooking eggs. He wears dark jeans and a white t-shirt, his hair still damp from his own shower, his feet bare against the tile floor. He looks younger like this, softer, less like a man who runs an empire, and more like someone she could actually know. "You cook?" Claire asks, sliding onto a stool at the island. "I'm Italian, it's genetic." He slides a plate in front of her. Eggs, toast, fresh fruit, all arranged with an artist's eye. "Eat, you're too thin." "I've been told I need to work on that." "By who?" "A man I almost let run me over." Marco laughs, and the sound does something warm to Claire's chest. She eats while he finishes cooking his own breakfast, and they sit together at the island, bumping elbows, sharing coffee from the same pot. It feels intimate. It feels right. "What happens now?" Claire asks when her plate is empty. "Whatever you want to happen." "That's not very specific." Marco sets down his fork and turns to face her fully. "I want to see you again, Claire. I want to take you to dinner and talk for hours. I want to wake up knowing I'll hear your voice before the day ends. I want to be part of your life, whatever part you'll give me. And your gray area business? I'll protect you from that. You won't have to know anything you don't want to know. But I'll be involved, by association." Yes, Claire considers this. She thinks about her safe, small life, the one she was living before the rain and the car and the man with storm-gray eyes. She thinks about going back to work, to her empty apartment, to nights spent alone with her grief and her regrets. Then she thinks about this, about him. "I have conditions," she says. "Name them. I keep working. I'm a nurse, and I'm good at it, and I'm not going to become some kept woman waiting for you to come home." "Agreed." "I need honesty. I don't need to know everything about your business, but I need to know you're not lying to me. If I ask a question, I need the truth, even if it's hard. Always. And I need time. I'm not ready for anything. Serious, I just got divorced. I lost a baby. I'm still figuring out who I am without all the things I thought defined me." Marco reaches across the island and takes her hand. "You can have all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." "Why are you so sure about this, about me?" "Because I've been waiting for you my whole life. I just didn't know it until that night in the rain." It should sound like a line. It should sound too smooth, too practiced. But the way he says it, with his eyes steady, on hers and his hand warm in hers, it sounds like truth, like fate. Claire squeezes his fingers. Okay. Okay. Let's try this, whatever this is. Marco's smile could light up the whole room. He pulls her off her stool and into his arms, holding her close, and Claire breathes in the scent of cedar and warmth and something that feels like home. Outside, the autumn sun shines bright, and somewhere in the distance, a bird sings. It's a new day, a new beginning. Claire is finally ready to live, again. The weeks that follow are the happiest Claire can remember. She returns to work at St. Catherine's, throwing herself into her nursing duties with renewed energy. Her colleagues notice the change in her, the colour in her cheeks, the smile that appears more often than not. Margaret, her supervisor, takes her aside one afternoon and tells her it's good to see her back. But the best parts of her days happen after work, when Marco sends a car to pick her up and bring her to the estate. They eat dinner together, sometimes cooked by him, sometimes by a chef he employs for special occasions. They talk for hours about everything: her childhood in Maine, his years in Sicily, the books they love, the dreams they've abandoned, the fears they carry. He tells her more about his business bit by bit, enough for her to understand without being complicit. He runs what he calls a family operation, inherited from his father and grandfather before him. They have interests in construction, shipping, hospitality, all legitimate on paper, all fed by money earned through less legitimate means: protection, loans, favors exchanged in the shadows of the city. "Does it bother you?" he asks one night, as they sit by the fire in his study. Claire considers the question carefully. "It should. I'm a nurse. I've dedicated my life to helping people, to doing good. What you do, it's the opposite of that, by some definitions." "And by other definitions?" "By other definitions, you protect people, too. Just differently." Marco studies her face, searching for something. "You're more understanding than most. Or more damaged. The lines between right and wrong don't seem as clear as they used to." He pulls her closer, tucking her against his side. "You're not damaged. You're evolved." She laughs softly. "I'm not sure that's better." "It's better for me." They kiss, slow and sweet, and Claire lets herself sink into him. She's falling, she knows, falling for a man who lives in shadows, who commands armies of suited soldiers, who has done things she can only imagine. But when he holds her like this, when he looks at her like she's the only light in his darkness, she can't find it in herself to care. It's during the 4th week that things start to change. Claire arrives at the estate one evening to find Marco in his study, speaking rapidly into his phone in Italian. His expression is hard, his voice sharp, and the 2 bodyguards who usually keep their distance are standing right. Outside his door, hands on their weapons. She waits in the hallway until he finishes, then knocks gently. He looks up, and for a moment she sees something in his eyes she's never seen before. Fear. "What's wrong?" she asks, stepping inside. "Nothing you need to worry about. Marco, honesty, remember?" He sighs, running a hand through his hair. "There's a situation. A rival family from New York. They've been making moves into our territory, testing boundaries. Tonight, they crossed a line." "What kind of line?" "They threatened someone close to me." Claire's heart stutters. "Who?" Marco doesn't answer, but his eyes say everything. She crosses the room and takes his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. "Is it me? Am I in danger?" "You're always in danger being with me. I've tried to keep you separate from this world, but they've been watching. They know about you, and they think threatening you will make me weak." "Will it?" "It makes me want to burn their entire operation to the ground." The intensity in his voice should frighten her. Instead, it makes her feel protected, valued, worth going to war over. No one has ever cared about her like this. No one has ever been willing to fight for her. "What do we do?" she asks. "We increase security. You stay here at the estate until this is resolved, and I handle them." What does handling mean? Marco's jaw tightens. It means doing whatever is necessary to keep you safe. Claire knows she should argue, should insist on going back to her apartment, to her normal life, to the fiction that she's not involved in any of this. But the truth is, she's been involved since the moment she got in his car, maybe even before that, since the moment she stepped into the rain and stopped caring whether she lived or died. Okay, she says, I'll stay. Relief floods his features. He pulls her into his arms, holding her tightly, and Claire feels his heart beating fast against her chest. I won't let anyone hurt you, he murmurs into her hair. I swear it on my life. I believe you. And she does. Against all logic, against all caution, she believes him completely. The next few days are tense. Claire continues going to work, but now she travels in an armored car with 3 guards instead of 1. She notices the same black SUV parked outside the hospital, the same suited men walking casual perimeters around the building. She should feel suffocated. Instead, she feels watched over, cared for. At night, she stays in the blue room at the estate, but she doesn't stay alone. Marco comes to her after his business is done, sliding into bed beside her, holding her close through the dark hours. They don't make love. He seems to be waiting for something, some signal that she's ready, and Claire isn't sure she is. Her body wants him, wants the release and connection she's been denying herself for so long, but her heart is still healing, still learning to trust. He seems to understand without being told. On the 5th day, something shifts. Claire returns from work to find the estate in chaos, guards running, voices raised, an energy that crackles like electricity before a storm. She finds Elena in the kitchen, pale and shaking. What happened? They tried to breach the east gate, a car packed with armed men. Security stopped them, but there were casualties. On which side? Both. Claire's stomach drops. Where's Marco? In the basement, with the survivors. She doesn't ask what that means. She doesn't want to know. Hours pass. Claire sits in the study, staring at the fire, waiting. She should call someone, her mother in Maine, her colleagues at the hospital, someone who exists in her normal life. But what would she say? That she's fallen for a man who runs a criminal empire? That she's sitting in his mansion while he does God knows what to the people who threatened her? Finally, near midnight, Marco appears. He's changed into clean clothes, but there's a weariness in his face that wasn't there before. He sits down heavily in the chair across from her and doesn't speak. Are you okay? Claire asks. No. Can you tell me what happened? No. She doesn't push. Instead, she rises, crosses to him, and kneels at his feet. She takes his hands in hers, feels them trembling slightly. I'm here, she says. Whatever happened, whatever you did, I'm still here. Marco looks at her with something like wonder. Why? Because I know who you are, not what you do, who you are. And the man who makes me breakfast and holds me at night and looks at me like I'm the best thing he's ever seen, that man is worth staying for. A sound escapes him, somewhere between a laugh and a sob. He pulls her up into his lap, burying his face in her neck. And they stay like that for a long time, 2 broken people holding each other together. When they finally go to bed that night, something has changed. The barrier between them, the careful distance Marco has maintained, is gone. He kisses her, like he's starving for her, like she's the only thing keeping him tethered to earth. And Claire kisses him back with equal fervor, giving herself to him completely, holding nothing back. They cross into new territory together, and when it's over, Claire lies in his arms, listening to his heart slow back to normal. I love you, Marco whispers into her hair. Claire closes her eyes, feeling the truth of it wash over her. She swore off love. She swore she would never let anyone close enough to hurt her again. But Marco hasn't hurt her. He's healed her, and she's healed him too in ways she's only beginning to understand. I love you too, she says. And she means it. The situation with the New York family escalates before it resolves. There are more incidents, more tense nights, more moments when Claire wonders if she's made a terrible mistake. But through it all, Marco keeps his promise. He protects her. He keeps her safe. And slowly, the threat begins to recede. The decisive moment comes. 3 weeks later, though Claire doesn't know it at the time, Marco leaves one evening, his expression hard and determined, and doesn't return until dawn. When he does, he's different. Lighter, somehow, as if a weight has been lifted. "It's over," he tells her, climbing into bed beside her. "They've agreed to a truce. You're safe." "How did you convince them?" "I showed them that threatening you was the worst mistake they could make." Claire doesn't ask for details. She's learning to live in the spaces between knowledge and ignorance, trusting Marco to handle the dark while she tends to the light. "So what happens now?" she asks. "Now we live. Together. If you'll have me." "Haven't I already had you?" He laughs, and the sound fills her with joy. "I mean permanently. I want you to move in, Claire. I want you here, in this house, every morning and every night. I want to build a life with you." It's too fast. It's been barely 2 months since the rain and the car and the kiss by the harbor. But time doesn't move normally when you're falling in love. Every day with Marco feels like a week, every week like a month. She knows him better than she knew David after 8 years. "Yes," she says, "I'll move in." Marco's face lights up with a smile that makes him look boyish, almost innocent. He kisses her, soft and sweet, then pulls her close. "You've saved me," he murmurs. "You know that, right? Before you, I was drowning in darkness. You gave me something to fight for." "You saved me too," Claire says. "I was dying, Marco, slowly but surely, and you brought me back to life." They hold each other as the sun rises, painting the room in shades of gold and pink. Outside, the world continues, full of danger and beauty and the endless possibility of tomorrow. But in this moment, in this room, there is only them, two broken people who found each other in the rain, two halves of a whole, finally complete. If this story has touched your heart, take a moment right now and comment below, "Love finds a way." This simple phrase connects all of us who believe that even in our darkest moments, hope exists. I want to know who's watching, who's feeling this journey with Claire and Marco. Type "Love finds a way" and let me see you. Moving into the estate changes everything and nothing. Claire still works at St. Catherine's, still spends her days helping patients and her nights coming home to Marco. But now home is a sprawling mansion instead of a cramped apartment, and the man waiting for her is not a ghost of disappointment, but a living, breathing promise. She learns the rhythms of his household, the names of the guards, the preferences of Eleanor, and the rest of the staff. She carves out a space for herself in his study, a comfortable chair where she reads while he works. She plants flowers in the garden, much to the confusion of the professional landscaper, and insists on cooking dinner herself at least twice a week. Marco watches her transform his house into a home with something like awe. "No one has ever done this," he tells her one evening, as she arranges fresh roses on the dining table. "Made this place feel alive. It was always alive, just empty." "Empty? Yes, that's exactly it." He pulls her into his arms and holds her, and Claire feels the emptiness he's talking about, the decades of loneliness that shaped him before she arrived. She's healing him, she realizes, just as he's healing her. Winter arrives, coating the estate in snow. Claire spends Christmas at the mansion, her first holiday with Marco, and he goes overboard in a way that makes her laugh until she cries. There are presents stacked so high she can't see over them, a tree that touches the ceiling, a feast prepared by 3 chefs that could feed a small army. "This is too much," she protests, opening her 7th gift. "It's our first Christmas. I wanted it to be memorable." It's memorable, also excessive, also wonderful. She kisses him, tasting champagne on his lips, and doesn't think about last Christmas, when she was pregnant and hopeful, and had no idea that everything was about to fall apart. That night, lying by the fire, Marco asks her about the baby. It's the first time he's brought it up since that first night in the car, and Claire feels her throat tighten, But she's stronger now. She's healed enough to talk about it without breaking. Her name was going to be Rose, she says, after my grandmother. I was 6 months along when it happened. They said it was a placental abruption. There was nothing anyone could have done. But you blamed yourself. Of course. I was her mother. I was supposed to protect her, and I failed. Marco pulls her closer, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You didn't fail. You loved her. You carried her as long as you could. That's not failure. That's courage. Tears stream down Claire's face, but they're different from the tears she's cried before. These are cleansing, releasing, letting go of the guilt she's carried for so long. Do you want children? She asks, her voice barely a whisper. I want whatever you want. If that's children, then yes. If it's just us, then yes. My family is whoever you are, Claire. You're all I need. It's the perfect answer. It's the answer David never gave, always pushing, always pressuring, making her feel like her worth was tied to her fertility. Marco makes her feel like she's enough, exactly as she is. Maybe someday, she says, when the wounds aren't so fresh. Whenever. You're ready. Or never. It doesn't matter. She falls asleep in his arms, warm and safe and loved, and dreams of roses blooming in spring. The new year brings changes. Marco begins the slow process of legitimizing his business, transitioning away from the activities that keep him awake at night. It's not an overnight transformation, but Claire sees the effort he's making, the meetings with lawyers and accountants, the new ventures that operate entirely above board. You don't have to do this for me, she tells him. I'm doing it for us. For the future I want to build with you. I can't keep living in the shadows forever. Can you leave? Just like that? Not just like that. It will take years. But yes, eventually. The family will continue, but I can step back. Hand the reins to someone else. Who? My cousin Antonio. He's ambitious. He's been waiting for an opportunity like this. Claire doesn't ask what the opportunity costs. She doesn't ask what Antonio is willing to do that Marco is trying to leave behind. Some questions are better left unanswered. Spring arrives, and with it a surprise. Claire wakes one morning feeling nauseous, a familiar sensation that sends her straight to the bathroom. She emerges pale and shaking, and Marco is there immediately, his face lined with concern. Are you sick? I don't know. Maybe. I should see a doctor. She goes to a clinic across town, far from St. Catherine's, where no one will recognize her. The doctor runs tests and returns with a knowing smile. Congratulations, Ms. Bennett. You're pregnant. The world stops. Claire sits in the sterile examination room, trying to process the words. Pregnant. Again, after everything she went through, everything she lost. Are you sure? She whispers. About 8 weeks along, based on the measurements, everything looks healthy so far. Healthy. A healthy pregnancy. A second chance. She drives back to the estate in a daze, her hands trembling on the wheel. She doesn't know how to tell Marco, doesn't know how to feel about any of this. Joy and terror war inside her, each emotion so intense she can barely breathe. He's in his study when she arrives, and he looks up immediately, reading her face with the precision that still amazes her. What happened? Claire crosses the room and takes his hands. I'm pregnant. The silence that follows stretches for an eternity. Then Marco's face transforms, joy breaking through like sunlight through clouds, and he pulls her into his arms. Claire, he breathes. Claire, are we? 8 weeks. The doctor says everything looks good. He pulls back to look at her, his eyes shining with tears she's never seen before. We're having a baby. We're having a baby. He laughs, a sound of pure, uncomplicated happiness, and spins her around the room. Then he stops, sets her down gently, and frames her face with his hands. Are you okay with this? He asks. After what happened before? I'm terrified, she admits. But I'm also hopeful. For the first time since I lost Rose, I believe things might actually be okay. They will be okay. I promise you. I will protect you and this baby with everything I have. Claire believes him. She's seen what he's capable of, seen the lengths he'll go to for the people he loves. And now there will be 3 of them. A family. The thought fills her with a warmth she thought she'd never feel again. The pregnancy is different this time. Claire is different. She takes care of herself, follows every doctor's instruction, lets Marco wrap her in cotton wool without too much protest. She cuts back on her hours at the hospital, though she refuses to stop working entirely. She's a nurse. It's who she is. Even carrying a baby, she needs to help people. Marco is attentive to the point of absurdity. He researches pregnancy nutrition and hires a chef who specializes in healthy cooking. He converts the room next to theirs into a nursery, spending hours choosing colors and furniture. He reads books about childbirth and parenting and asks questions that would make Claire laugh if they weren't so endearing. It says here that stress is bad for the baby, he announces one evening, reading from a thick paperback. We should avoid stressful situations. I'll let the baby know. I'm serious. I want you to tell me if anything is bothering you. Work, life, us, anything. Claire puts down her own book and looks at him. This powerful man, this boss of a criminal empire, is worried about her stress levels. The contradiction should be absurd. Instead, it's perfect. The only thing bothering me is how much I love you, she says. Marco grins, the boyish smile she loves so much. That's not a problem. That's a solution. The months pass quickly. Claire's belly grows and with it her confidence. This time feels different. This time she has support, has love, has a man who holds her hand during every appointment and tells her she's beautiful even when she feels like a whale. At 7 months, they find out the baby is a boy. A son, Marco says, his voice hushed with wonder. We're having a son. What do you want to name him? Whatever you want. It should be Italian, to honor your family. He considers this. Luca, after my grandfather. He was the only one who believed I could be more than what I was born into. Claire tries the name on her tongue. Luca de Luca. It's perfect. Luca de Luca Bennett, if you want. She looks at him, surprised. You'd let me hyphenate? I'd let you do anything. You're the mother of my child. You can have whatever you want. She kisses him, soft and grateful, and feels Luca kick beneath her ribs as if in approval. The labor comes 2 weeks early, in the middle of the night. Claire wakes to cramping and knows immediately what's happening. She nudges Marco awake, and within minutes the house is in organized chaos, guards and staff mobilizing like they're preparing for battle. Marco drives her to the hospital, himself, breaking every speed limit, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Claire tries to breathe through the contractions, focuses on the sound of his voice telling her it's going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. 12 hours later, Luca Antonio de Luca Bennett enters the world screaming. He's perfect. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, with his father's dark hair and his mother's blue eyes. He stops crying the moment he's placed on Claire's chest, looking up at her with an expression of profound trust. Hi, little one, Claire whispers, tears streaming down her face. I'm your mum. Marco stands beside the bed, his face wet with tears he doesn't try to hide. He reaches out and touches his son's tiny hand, and Luca's fingers wrap around his thumb. He's real, Marco says, his voice cracking. He's actually real. He's real, and he's ours. They stay like that for a long time, the 3 of them together, a family finally complete. The room is quiet except for Luca's soft breathing and the beep of the monitors, and the gentle sound of 2 hearts breaking open with love. Claire thinks about the journey that brought her here, the miscarriage, the divorce, the night in the rain when she almost gave up. If any of those things had been different, she wouldn't be in this moment, holding this baby, loving this man. Everything she lost led her to everything she found. She wouldn't change a single moment. The first year with Luca is a blur of sleepless nights and overwhelming joy. Claire takes a leave of absence from the hospital, unable to imagine being away from her son for more than a few hours at a time. Marco proves to be a surprisingly adept father, changing diapers and walking the floors at 3 in the morning and singing Italian lullabies that make Claire fall in love with him all over again. They settle into a routine, the three of them. Mornings in the sunny kitchen, Luca in his high chair smearing oatmeal everywhere. Afternoons in the garden, where Claire teaches him the names of flowers, and Marco pretends to be a monster chasing them through the hedges. Evenings by the fire, Luca asleep between them, the whole world narrowed down to this perfect moment. The dark parts of Marco's life continue, but they feel more distant now. Antonio has taken over most of the day-to-day operations, and Marco spends his time on the legitimate businesses, on real estate deals and restaurant openings, and the charitable foundation Claire convinced him to start. The Rose Foundation, she named it after the daughter she lost. It funds programs for women who've experienced pregnancy loss, providing counseling and support, and the community Claire wished she'd had during her darkest days. "You've turned my legacy into something good," Marco tells her, watching her prepare for a fundraising gala. "We've turned it into something good. Together." Together. He pulls her close, careful not to wrinkle her dress. "I like that word." "So do I." They kiss, soft and familiar, and somewhere in the house Luca starts to cry, calling them back to the beautiful chaos of their lives. On the evening of their second anniversary, Marco arranges a special dinner. Just the two of them, in a private room at his restaurant in the North End, where they had their first date all those years ago. Elena stays at the estate with Luca, and Claire feels both guilty and giddy, leaving her son for the first time in months. "He'll be fine," Marco assures her. Elena. "Raised 5 children. She knows what she's doing. I know, I just miss him already. You'll see him in a few hours. Tonight is about us." The dinner is perfect, pasta and wine and conversation that flows as easily as it did in the beginning. But Claire senses something different in Marco's demeanor, a nervousness she's never seen before. "What's wrong?" she asks halfway through dessert. "Nothing's wrong. Everything is right." He takes a deep breath. "That's actually the problem. Everything is so right that I'm terrified of losing it." "You're not going to lose it. I know, but I want to make sure." He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small velvet box. "Claire, you walked into my life like a storm, and you've never stopped changing everything you touch. You made me want to be better. You gave me a son. You showed me that love isn't weakness. It's the only strength that matters." Claire's heart is pounding so hard she can barely hear him. Marco opens the box, revealing a ring that sparkles with diamonds and promises. "Will you marry me?" She's crying before she can answer, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. She thinks about everything they've been through, every obstacle they've overcome, every moment she thought she'd never find happiness again. "Yes," she whispers. "Yes, yes, yes." Marco slides the ring onto her finger, and it fits perfectly, like it was always meant to be there. He pulls her into his arms and kisses her, and Claire feels the last broken. Pieces of her heart finally slot into place. She swore off love. She believed she was done. But love found her anyway, in the form of a man with storm-grey eyes who saw her worth when she couldn't see it herself. The wedding is 6 months later, in the garden of the estate, surrounded by roses that bloom as if on command. Claire wears white because she can, because Marco insists she looks like an angel, because she finally feels like she deserves the fairy tale. Luca serves as ring-bearer, toddling down the aisle with a pillow clutched in his chubby hands, and everyone laughs and cries as he trips over his own feet, and Marco scoops him up, carrying him the rest of the way. The ceremony is short, but meaningful. They wrote their own vows, promises of forever that feel real in a way Claire's first wedding never did. "You saved me," she tells Marco, her voice steady. "You found me when I was lost. You protected me when I was afraid. And you loved me when I didn't think I deserved it. I promise to spend the rest of my life proving that your faith wasn't misplaced." "You changed me," Marco responds, his eyes shining. "You showed me there was more to life than power and control. You gave me a family, a purpose, a reason to be better. I promise to spend the rest of my life being the man you deserve." They exchange rings, exchange kisses, exchange promises that feel as solid as the ground beneath their feet. And when the officiant pronounces them husband and wife, the cheers that erupt seem to shake the very sky. The reception is a blur of champagne and dancing and congratulations from people Claire barely knows. Marco's world is larger than she ever imagined, filled with businessmen and politicians and families whose names she recognizes from newspapers. But they're all kind to her, all welcoming, all treating her like she belongs. Because she does belong. This is her family now, her world, her life. As the evening winds down, Claire finds a quiet moment by the rose garden looking up at the stars. Luca is asleep in Elena's arms inside, and Marco is somewhere handling the last of the guests. She breathes in the night air, filled with the scent of flowers and possibility. Mrs. De Luca. She turns to find Marco approaching, his tie loosened, his hair mussed, looking more handsome than any man has a right to be. Mr. De Luca, she responds. How are you feeling? Like I'm dreaming. Like I'm going to wake up any minute and be back in that rainy street, wondering if it would hurt to just let the car hit me. Marco's expression shifts, concern flooding his features. Claire? No, let me finish. She takes his hand, intertwining their fingers. I was in such a dark place that night. I thought my life was over. I thought I had nothing left to live for, and then you almost hit me with your car. I prefer to think of it as fate putting you in my path. Whatever it was, it saved me. You saved me. And now I have everything I never dared to dream. I have a husband who adores me, a son who lights up my world, a life that feels too good to be real. It's real, Marco says firmly, and it's yours, ours, forever. He pulls her close, and they dance under the stars, no music except the beating of their hearts. Claire rests her head against his chest and lets herself believe in forever. She swore off love. She was wrong. Love was waiting for her all along. If you've watched this far, it's because you liked this story. Leave a comment saying, I've watched this far, so I can get to know you and see who really enjoys the stories here on the channel. Your comments mean the world to me. They show me that these stories matter, that they're touching hearts and changing perspectives. And if this story made you feel something, if Claire and Marco's journey moved you, don't forget to leave a like and share this video with someone who needs to hear that love can find us in the most unexpected ways. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. There are more stories waiting, more journeys of love and redemption, and the human capacity for transformation. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for believing in love. Until the next story. 5 years pass, and the life Claire built with Marco exceeds every dream she dared not have. Luca grows into a curious, kind boy, with his father's intensity and his mother's compassion. He attends the best schools in Boston, makes friends easily, and shows an early aptitude for languages that delights his grandmother in Sicily. The Rose Foundation flourishes, expanding its services to include support groups, financial assistance, and educational programs. Claire returns to nursing part-time, finding fulfillment in helping others while still being present for her family. She becomes known in certain circles as a woman who transforms tragedy into triumph, who takes broken things and makes them beautiful. Marco continues his transition into legitimate business. The process is slower than either of them anticipated, complicated by politics and loyalties and the stubborn persistence of the old ways. But he perseveres, motivated by the family he's built, the future he wants for his son. On Luca's 5th birthday, they throw a party at the estate, filling the garden with children and laughter, and the kind of ordinary joy that once seemed impossible. Claire watches from the kitchen window as Marco plays with the kids, chasing them through the hedges, letting them climb on him like a jungle gym. He's a good father, Elena observes, coming to stand beside her. The best. You're a good mother. Claire smiles, still not quite used to the compliment. I try. You succeed. Elena pats her arm. I've worked for this family for 30 years. I've never seen Mr. De Luca as happy as he's been since you arrived. You brought light into this house. He brought light into me. Eleanor nods, understanding without needing explanation. They watch together as Marco catches Luca and swings him around, both of them laughing with the pure, unself-conscious joy of shared love. That night, after the guests have gone and Luca is asleep, Claire and Marco sit on the balcony of their bedroom looking out at the stars. "Remember the night we met?" Marco asks. "How could I forget? You almost killed me." I prefer to think of it as dramatically introducing myself. Claire laughs, the sound easy and free. "You were very dramatic, all that Italian intensity. You were very stubborn, all that American independence. We're a good match, the best." He takes her hand, running his thumb over the wedding band she's worn for 4 years. "I want to tell you something." "Okay." "I'm stepping back from the family business completely." Claire's heart stops. "What?" "Antonio's ready. He's been ready. And I'm tired, Claire. Tired of the shadows, the threats, the constant vigilance. I want to just be a husband and father. I want to coach Luca's soccer team and go to PTA meetings and have boring conversations about lawn care. You want to be normal? I want to be yours, completely, without any part of me belonging to that world." Claire thinks about what this means, the enormity of the sacrifice. Marco's family has been in this life for generations. Walking away isn't just a career change, it's an existential shift, a reinvention of everything he's ever known. "Are you sure?" she asks. "I've never been more sure of anything, except loving you." She leans over and kisses him, tasting the promise on his lips. "Then do it. Walk away. Be mine." "I already am." They spend the rest of the night talking, planning, dreaming of a future unshackled from the past. When dawn breaks over the estate, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, Claire feels like she's witnessing a new beginning. The last chapter of one story, the first chapter of another. The transition takes a year, filled with meetings and negotiations and moments when Claire fears the old life will refuse to let go. But Marco is determined, and determination has always been his strongest quality. He extricates himself piece by piece until finally, on a spring day that smells of lilacs and possibility, he's free. They celebrate with a quiet dinner at home, just the 3 of them. Luca doesn't understand the significance, but he picks up on his parents' joy and bounces around the table with infectious enthusiasm. "Can we get a dog now?" he asks for the 100th time. Marco looks at Claire. Claire looks at Marco. They've been putting off this decision for years, waiting for the right moment. "Yes," they say together. Luca's shriek of excitement echoes through the house, and Claire laughs until tears stream down her face. This is her life now. Dogs and homework and soccer games. Ordinary moments that feel extraordinary because she almost didn't survive to experience them. She thinks about the woman she was 3 years ago, the one who stood in the rain and considered letting the car hit her. That woman couldn't have imagined this, couldn't have believed it was possible. But it is possible. It's real. It's hers. Claire doesn't know what the future holds. There will be challenges, she's sure, obstacles and heartaches and moments when everything seems impossible. But she also knows that she'll face them with Marco by her side, with Luca's laughter in her ears, with the knowledge that she survived the worst and found the best. She swore off love. Love didn't listen, and she's never been more grateful for anything in her life. The end. If you've watched this far, it's because you liked this story. Leave a comment saying, "I've watched this far," so I can get to know you and see who really enjoys the stories here on the channel. If this story touched your heart, reminded you that hope exists even in our darkest moments, please leave a like. Your likes help this channel grow and bring these stories to more people who need to hear them. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Hit that button, turn on notifications, and join our community of people who believe in the transformative power of love. Share this video with someone who needs it, someone who's struggling, someone who's lost hope, someone who thinks their story is over. Tell them it's not. Tell them the best chapter might be waiting just around the corner. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing. Until next time, remember, love finds a way always.